Thank you, John.
Sure.
All right, we don't have any liquor control stuff.
Sort of, but later.
We don't have to go into liquor control mode. Nothing on the cannabis side. Order of agenda, pretty straightforward. Public comment, I'll start in the room. Any comment? Anyone on Zoom?
There are no hands up at the moment.
Okay, so we'll end public comments. Our first item, we're going to hear from Lisa O'Neill, recommendations for liquor policy changes. So Lisa, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. This will be very brief. Mostly just to tell you what is in your packet for preparation for the January 7th meeting.
Okay.
So I think, as I mentioned about a month ago, we'd be coming to you with some potential revisions to the liquor policy and procedure, driven largely by the fact that at the state level, the Department of Liquor and Lottery now does everything through an online portal, including municipalities, the applicants themselves, and DLL. So that's driving most of it. And I thank Sherry West in the town clerk's office, who did all the heavy lifting on this, for pulling it all together. This includes the revisions, a copy of the current policy, and then all the other items that are included are things that we give to applicants. So those items you wouldn't necessarily need to take action on,
Okay.
but they're there as a point of reference. And what I would ask, if you're able to over the next couple weeks, is if you have questions after reviewing it, if you could get them to the town manager, any comments or questions, so we can respond in preparation for January 7th. And then if you felt ready, you all could consider adopting it at that point. And I'll answer any questions at that point.
Okay, so you want us to review all this, get questions to John, and then the idea is that we'll move possibly to adopt it on the 7th.
If that seems feasible to all of you, this seemed like the most prudent way. And then I'll be prepared to address any questions you might have on that day.
That sound good, everybody?
Yeah,
Yep.
just have one question, which is not content related, but the I was glad to see it in the new policy format template, but I don't know that, I'm not certain the policy template we adopted, I think had the thing where it has like a field with the date it was approved, the date it was expired, who owns it, like, so I think just the template format should just be double checked. Maybe it is the correct
I
one.
think Lana provided a template to Sherry when she was working on it, but I never saw that piece because as I said, I didn't do the heavy lifting.
Gotcha.
Sherry did, but we can look into
Just
that
be
for
something to
sure.
review. I think because all the content is fine. I think some of them have definitions. I don't know that we necessarily need that component, but I do think it's helpful to have a spot where there's an easy, all that kind of data about when it was approved, when it expires, etc. Who owns it is helpful.
Anyone else have any questions for Lisa? We just have homework to do until 7.
Guys, a question. What drives the need for both fire inspections and the need for background checks? Is that something the state mandates?
It's in your policy.
So it's our policy. We did that.
It's the local policy.
So it's not something the state told us that we should be doing. Is that?
I'd have to defer to the fire marshal to be sure. I think they have an annual inspection that may be part of the state piece. I can have that information for you when I see you on the 7th.
Mhm.
But your policy, you'll see I included a copy of the current policy.
Right. Yeah, I
in
saw
your
that.
packet. So I think some of those things are spelled out there. And the other goal was to clarify things like outside dining, things that come up repeatedly whenever an application comes before you, to try and provide that clarification for you and also for the applicant, so everyone's held to the same standard. But let me see if I can have that information for you.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I have a little bit of problem with is that there doesn't seem to me to be any avenue for someone to be able to submit something in person, only electronically. And if a business owner does not have electronic communication, or if they're not computer savvy,
They don't get a liquor license. This portal was established by the state several years ago. We still, in a pinch, will accept an outside consumption sketch or request to cater sketch. Even our local application, we will, in a pinch, accept it
I guess that was
either
my
in
question.
person or by email if someone can't figure out how to attach it in the portal. But everything else through the state, they start the process at the state level, they submit their application, that has to occur through the portal. We then get notified that the application is pending, and then we request additional information. So we ask them to upload it to the portal, but if they're unable to, we will accept it in our office via email, or they can hand carry it. So we're not as stringent. It's more convenient for us if they
Okay.
upload it to the portal. The whole idea was they were going paperless.
I'm just wondering about
So
somebody
we
that
are
has,
trying to follow suit, but we will be somewhat flexible.
I'm
if
just
somebody really
wonder
struggles.
about an ESL person that owns a business. English is a second language.
We
owns a
always work
business
with our
and-
applicants, and we have for a long time. We used to have to mail out packets about this thick in a 9x12 folder every December when the state sent them to us to over 30 applicants. So it certainly is saved in that way. And most have had no difficulty navigating it. Initially, they did just because the portal had so many bugs. Most of those have been worked through. And most have found a way. Either they have someone in their business who's a little more savvy than they might be, or they can call DLL and they'll walk them through it.
Okay.
Okay.
I know when I had to put one in for the VFW, I called up from liquor control and they were helpful in getting it done, but I just want to make sure it's easy for someone to, go through the process of it.
We are beholden to the state's process at this point.
Thank you.
Mary?
Yeah, I had a quick question that you don't have to answer now if we should wait, but as I was reading through it, and it was talking about a catering permit.
Mhm.
Do you have to have a catering permit if you're not serving alcohol? Or is it only because this is the Department of Liquor?
Your catering permit, they're getting permission to be able to use it at an event where alcohol is being served. So they have a caterer's license.
Okay,
And then the catering permit comes to the local level because it's being done at an event in Hartford. And
okay,
the way it has worked recently, and this is something we could dive into more on the 7th,
okay,
is the town manager has deferred to the clerks to process those.
right,
If we see any that raise little red flags for us, we would go to the town manager and say, would you mind looking at this one before we approve it? And that's been true since Leo Porter was here. He
Okay.
also had us handle it just to keep one more thing off their desk. But if we see one that's complicated, we will definitely
okay.
confer.
'Cause I
It's
know
up to the
people-
board to
yeah.
let us know
Yeah, because I
if
know,
they feel differently.
I know people who have catered informally. They don't serve the liquor, but the liquor is there at the house. So that's, and as far as I knew, there was no permit.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm asking.
That's probably a DLL question to
Mhm.
say, these are people who literally hold a caterer's license in the
Okay.
state of Vermont.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Okay, next item, continued review of cleaning contract bids. John?
Yes, at the last meeting, there was a question about whether the budgets for the current year and the next year as proposed were sufficient to deal with what were relatively minor increases in the cleaning contract from 2024. On closer inspection, it appears that as to Town Hall and the West Hartford Library, the cleaning contract proposed number is actually lower than the current year. It's only at Police and Dispatch where there is a modest increase. And Chief Sheldon has pointed out that his current and future budget are sufficient to deal with that. So I would ask that the board consider making the award of the contract to the low bidder.
Mary?
And did we address, or I'm trying to remember, except the fact that, oh, okay, it covers both 25 and 26.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
we weren't way out. All right,
Other questions for John? Wayne?
No, I'll make a motion.
Make a motion. Any other questions on Wayne? I'll make a motion. Go for it.
Make a motion to move to accept the bid from RC Cleaners LLC, an overall amount of $4,420 per month in 2025 and $4,552.56
Excuse me.
per month in 2026, and instruct the town manager to execute a contract with RC Cleaning LLC to cover 2025 and 2026 consistent with the prices quoted. This is directly off of the email that you sent this afternoon, John.
Yes, in fact, Lana had redone the numbers and it was a $30 difference between
Okay,
my
so
calculations
that's
and
the up to
hers.
date one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second from Mary. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Very
Great.
good.
Now we'll get to the main portion, the main event.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to walk through a little bit of history to bring us up to date, if you
Okay.
don't mind, just for you and for anyone watching at home. As you know, the process of budgeting begins pretty much every October here in the town hall with select board guidance issuing and then department heads developing their proposed budgets. Town manager and the finance director review these budgets and proposals with the department heads. As has been the case in the past, the town manager made some modifications to those originally proposed budgets. Then in November, finance director collected these modified department head budgets and presented them all together to the select board for review. Department heads then presented their budgets to the select board, one after another. When combined, these modified department head budgets together amounted to a general fund spending increase of approximately 11.3% over the current fiscal year. On the December 3rd select board budget hearing, it was pretty well the consensus of the board that that was an unacceptably high expense increase. And therefore, the select board tasked the town manager and finance director and staff to find $700,000 of budget expense reductions. Each department head proposed spending cuts within their own departments, which actually totaled approximately $1.3 million. So we're very proud of the work that all the department heads did, both large departments and small, to identify savings where possible. If these changes were approved and nothing else were to change, the general fund budget expense increase would fall from 11.3% to 5.15%. However, the tax rate increase would still be 12.36% due to the fact that in 2025, the town had $2 million to apply toward the tax rates. We don't have that luxury this year. We only have approximately $479,000 to apply if the town wants to stand by its practice of keeping a minimum balance of $2 million in that unassigned fund. Now, there has been an additional recommendation from the finance director that the select board consider reductions to the highway pavement budget. Those have not been offered up by the department head. However, he's aware of them and I think was prepared to discuss those maybe before going out on his water break call a few minutes ago. The town manager's view is that that budget could probably take a serious looking at, but maybe in the town manager's view, maybe not as much as $300,000 to cut. But again, that's a discussion for the board to have. It's a tool in your tool belt to help adjust to get to where you want to be on the bottom line number, I would suggest. Tonight, Gail, the finance director, is here to walk you through some of the details in the reductions that have been achieved over these last 2 weeks. And so, Gail, if you'd like to take any of the microphones, you can give us that summary if you would.
Before you do that, can I just go back to what you were saying, that change has resulted in a 5 point what percent?
If they were adopted and nothing else was to change, revenues or expenses, we'd be talking about a 5.15% increase in expenditures in the general fund over the current fiscal year.
But we're still looking at a 12.36% increase.
Yes, and again, my only explanation is that last year we could apply $2 million of the unassigned fund against the tax rates. This year, we only have about $479,000 to do with.
How did we go from 11.3 to 12.36?
Well, again,
$2 million.
Just,
one's an expense number
yeah,
and one is a tax rate number. Tax rate number is consists of both revenues and expenses. So
what was
the
our
ex-
tax rate number before?
24%.
24%.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that number before.
Okay.
So it's so it'd still be a 5.15%, taxpayers.
spending increase.
right, spending increase that will
But
have to be funded by the taxpayers.
The 10.55 is the amount of the tax rate increase with this current draft of the budget.
Does that include,
I'm sorry, 12.6%.
12.36.
12.36. And that again is subject to any further reductions you might want to make, or if we can pull a magic rabbit out of our hat on the revenue side.
does that
Don't
include
matter.
the lot?
Wow.
Included
No,
in-
but the lot that we have proposed using, I don't believe has an effect beyond a couple of departments. You've got a possible use of $200,000 toward the purchase of a highway truck that would represent some additional savings. And you've got, I believe the number is 87,000 in Parks and Rec for two pieces of two vehicles that could also represent savings as well. So the additional items, the $60,000 that has been proposed for an AV upgrade was never budgeted, so that wouldn't be a direct savings. And nor is the $58,000 that the fire department is looking for to buy some vehicle extraction equipment.
Okay. So not all the proposed lots one would represent savings.
Yes,
Some of the
that's
items
right,
are budgeted.
right.
Okay.
Roughly, I think, again, the number's about 287,000.
Turn to Gail. Gail wants to give us-
Can I ask-
Yeah, please
One more
do.
question. John, so how many trucks do we currently have at the fire department that have extrication equipment? We're gonna add one more.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer. I know that Chief Cooney had asked for some smaller amount in his original budget. After the discussion that Gail and I had with him, I saw fit to reduce that number because it didn't seem like an absolute must-have. So that was in my first round of modifications to his budget. I don't know what other equipment he has besides what he asked for and was removed. I don't know.
Have to
He would
question-
know, and I imagine he'll be back.
I just have to question how many sets we need,
Yeah.
so.
Good.
So everybody has their list of changes or corrections. And this particular sheet was just updated. I had given, maybe I didn't give you guys one. I had started working on one with just overall corrections. And when I say corrections, I mean meeting with department heads, and it could be that their math didn't add up or their census information was incorrect. So the first draft of it I did was specifically working with the department heads and the town manager to go through. We also have a list of narrative changes that need to be done by the department heads, but those will not happen until I open the software program up again. Right now, it's closed down. John and I are the only two that have access to it. And we kind of like it that way because that way people aren't in there changing things. But it's also not good use of my time to go in and change everybody's narrative. So once we come to an agreement of what we want, I'll open it and department heads can go back in. So I'm just going to start at the top of the list. We had select board training that's highlighted in orange because that's something that currently has a zero balance in it and need to know if that's going to be added or not. Town manager mentioned that the Sister City Committee potentially may have students coming here to visit instead of us sending
Mhm.
over there. They currently have $1,814 in their reserves for sister cities. I did ask the question if they have students coming here, is the school going to participate in paying for some of it because they didn't before? So
The only reason I even asked it is to be included is because I forget the woman's name, Joan Ponzoni, stopped by my office to mention that they might want some funding. I encouraged her to be more detailed and get back, but I haven't heard anything further from her. I can certainly reach out to her.
So then moving down to boards, commissions and committees. Originally, the town manager had cut out 50% of the stipends. And he requested that I bring it down 60%. So those are the numbers that are there. The net change, as you can see, is 78, 76, 83. Then we move down to Department 121, which is the town manager's office. There were a couple changes in there that the town manager made in his effort to make reductions. And also the two items that were added was allocating the HR director and the IT director. So they are allocated, such as myself as the finance director, the town manager, we have a few different employees, the environmental sustainability coordinator. And when I say it's allocated, a portion of it goes to the general fund and then the rest of it is split amongst the enterprise funds, which is more than appropriate because we, in certain positions, obviously provide services to more than just the general fund.
So what, can you just tell us what other accounts that are linked to those two then? Like the other account that's linked to the 10, 121, 101, 0200, the HR salary?
So those are allocated out to the, what you see here is I removed 53,980 out of that line. And that balance went to the enterprise funds.
Right, but is that,
That's the HR director.
right, is that position paid for by more than one budget?
It is now, it will be now if
Okay,
it's
that's-
approved by yourself and the.
That's what I'm
and the
asking is
board.
what other budget is it coming out of? What other line item is it coming out of?
It would be, of
Good.
course, the other enterprise funds,
Solid waste.
solid
all of it,
waste,
so
water
split
and
across all
sewer.
of them.
Yep.
Okay.
It would not come out of solid waste.
Oh,
It
no,
only
sorry.
comes out of the two water funds and the wastewater and the two wastewater funds.
Thank you.
So it'll be a separate line item within those.
No, they'll go into example for White River Water. It would be in the admin section, which is 5955.
Okay. So is the actual salary amount though going to change, or is it just going to be divvied up differently?
If the
This-
salary is the amount that was budgeted,
Okay.
and the only thing that was done
Is
was
source funding different? Yeah,
correct.
I got it.
And that's the same thing with the IT director.
And what we see in here for a number of 107,952 is the total salary split among multiple accounts for that HR director.
What
correct?
account? I'm not sure what I'm looking at the change sheet. Okay, so the 107, correct,
Yeah,
is what it was originally.
Okay,
And now it's been brought down to 53,971 with the balance being allocated out to the two water funds and the two wastewater funds.
but it's still $107,952 split amongst the different departments. That's what I'm
Outside
getting.
of the general fund,
Yes, okay, that's what I'm asking. Thank you.
which are enterprise funds.
Yes, but the end amount, it's the same dollar amount,
Right.
regardless of how it's paid for.
Correct. I
Okay.
apologize if you got the indication that the amount was changed.
I thought,
because
yeah,
that's
that's,
not-
I thought it was decreased, or I just want to make sure that it makes it difficult to understand it when it's taken from different enterprise accounts, because we don't see it's hard to come up with that final number. So,
Hopefully the narratives will capture that as they have in other lines like Lana, for example, 65% in the general fund or in certain portion of the budget and 35% in the delinquent tax budget, for example.
Okay, Ms. Gill?
Moving on to 131 and 151. These are efforts that were made by the town clerk to be participating in trying to come up with the $700,000. As I'd noted in our last meeting that we had, it's a team effort. And even though some of us have very little to take out of our budget, we're certainly willing to make those recommendations. So that's for 131 and 151. And then you go to 171, which is the finance department. And same thing with me being part of the team and trying to find reductions. Just cut contracted services. And you can see they're listed there. And then moving on to Department 174, which is the assessors department. Same situation, small department trying to contribute to help with cutting the budget. Then we move on to the the IT department. There were some corrections that the IT director had already disclosed when he presented his budget. And then the other items that are listed on here are his effort to contribute to budget reduction.
That's the salary one, his salary also.
That one also has been
being
allocated.
partly allocated,
Correct.
yeah.
Yep.
Kim?
Is it possible to find out which contracted services were removed?
Did you put it in your? I don't know if you put it in your, let's see. Did you all
in
get
that
copies of the,
Email exchange?
Yeah.
Yes, the backup.
Okay, so maybe.
so that might be listed in there. I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
Where is the 10,174 line item listed? Because I'm not seeing that on my,
10,174 is directly after 10,171. At the
I-
top of the
I'm
page.
also not seeing it.
I'm not seeing that.
Got it on page 25 of the packet.
I have a
Did
page.
I write it wrong?
So you and I.
I don't have it.
171. And that goes.
I have goes from 171 to 412.
That's the
So
same
that's what,
thing.
so maybe the one on the agenda packet didn't get updated.
The one on the website is updated. That's what I'm.
Maybe try refreshing. I literally have,
It's just the one I don't.
You got it off the website?
oh, if you.
I just go to the Hartford website for.
All right, I gotta go there.
The, if you want to hear about the IT director's reductions, his memo says he's willing to reduce training from 4,000 to 2,500 and departmental equipment from 1,000 to 500, bringing a total of $2,000.
And then Right, so the reduction in the contracted services was presented during his presentation.
Okay,
So
so-
that's not anything new.
Okay, I think that's where I had the thing. Maybe I did see the memo and I was not.
Yeah, so nothing new, other than the allocation being put in place for the salaries. And then as the town manager read the two different line items that making an effort to try to contribute.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Moving down to,
Oh, wait, hold up just a second till I get this.
Yeah, you
Please,
might be looking
it's-
at that.
I'm, for what it's worth, I was looking at the one that was emailed to us last week, which has 55 total pages. Is that what you guys have?
I have the packet. off
Oh, do you
the
wanna give me-
agenda
I can
section
print
on
it.
the website.
why don't I just print it real quick? Does everybody need a copy of it?
Yeah.
That
No,
would be
no,
helpful, yes.
I have it now because I went to the website.
Yeah.
If you could print it, if you could
It's on
print it, it'd
page
be awesome.
25.
I'm sorry.
If you could print it, it'd be great, but
So yes, now I'm good
It's on
on
the
page 25.
Okay.
Yeah, yours is right.
I just have it.
this is why budget season's hard, because there's so many documents
Mhm.
and they end up in different places.
That's one reason it's hard. Not the only one.
Well, it's also not feasible to
Yes,
print
all that.
every single time. I mean,
Right.
that's that many pages.
I understand that, but the problem is that both Brandon and I were looking at what was sent to us, all right, and we had no control over what was sent to us, all right?
No, but
And I
we-
didn't know that the updated one, nor did Brandon, know the updated one was on the town's website. So we really can't be held accountable for what we don't have, you know?
I'm holding
so-
you accountable. We'll give you a copy. of it, all right?
I don't see an option to print to you.
Or either one of them could just print it from the website. too. It's 24, 24.
Print it. If not, I'll email it to you too, Scott. in case
The
you
one that we were
didn't get
saying is
it.
55 pages, and the one on the website is 83.
Mhm.
It's quite a lot.
And the biggest addition in the second, in the follow-up packet was Gail's year-to-date performance on the 25
Gail,
budget.
do you have it just in an Excel format you could email to the board? That would work.
I have it in a huge document that I can try to take it out of and send it to you. I'm not sending the entire workbook that I have going.
Does everyone have what they need, or are we gonna wait for the printout
Okay.
before we move on?
Where are you at now?
I have what I need.
You got what
It's,
you need?
yeah, just because I went to the website. What's posted to the website has 83 pages of this PDF.
Yes.
And what we were sent has 55 pages.
Well, I've asked Gail to email it, so.
So if you're on page 25 of the website agenda, that's where we left off.
I don't want to take Gail away from what she's doing right now. which is
Lana tells
attempting
me
to-
she sent the link to the latest update to the select board. Or that it was sent to you. Okay.
When was that?
More recently than the original
Yes.
packet, but sorry.
So it's a work in progress.
Mhm. It would have been yesterday.
Yesterday?
Mhm.
Oh, we're getting there.
So you're just missing the pages, but you have the support for each department head that provided that to you. You're just missing some of the pages of the list. Is that correct?
I'm not sure what I'm missing, but what I was missing, that is, I'm not missing anything anymore.
Oh, keep that up. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't-
I just took what you printed.
Yeah, Dylan, do you mind running and doing a couple more? Because I know Lisa and Lori don't have them either. I'm good.
Well, I should all, yes.
I think I'm good. Make sure.
Okay. I've got it. Thanks.
I would welcome it. Thank you.
Okay, now.
Thank you,
everybody's
Gail.
Yeah.
Get back to it.
We were at IT, right?
Yes.
We just finished IT, and so now we're going to Department 211. Did everybody find that on page 2, midway?
Mhm.
So there was one reduction on here, removing the cruiser and the tablets were originally in that department and giving an option either to have them listed on lot as an item, or they can pay for them out of reserves. So that's, and then moving on to the fire department. This one, Chief Cooney put together some reduction items as requested by the town manager and by you as the board. And then moving on to,
It says recommend
Yes.
restoring.
Mhm.
What about the recommended restoring after the reduction?
so those are items that are marked in the event that the board recognizes that we went above and beyond the the $700,000. Those are some items that are hard on the fire department, and as you can see in Scott's, in the fire chief's email regarding it, so.
Can I ask, and again, well, maybe this is. So would that apply to, like the medical equipment and supplies? Is that reduction also related to the cardiac monitors?
The
It's-
cardiac monitors has already been addressed. They're gonna pay for that with reserves based on the last.
Okay,
meeting.
so somehow I had those two conflated, my bad. And then, so this 79,351 recommend.
I'm sorry, Kim, I didn't hear you.
The 79,351 recommended restoring, it's potentially just. We don't need to know what the specifics of that are.
It's those line items. It's what Chief Cooney took out items out of his budget in each one of those lines to have it reduced. And but you would like to know specifically which item is?
I guess I'm not sure, yeah, just so, like, I didn't add them up, but I assumed the 114,000 amount was the total of those reductions.
No, the 114 is on, or excuse me, the 113,494, is that what you're looking at?
No, 114,001 at the bottom of fire 221.
Right above
Right above.
recommended restoring.
I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding.
I saw it earlier today when I was reviewing this, Sean, but
She's wondering what.
what
Yes,
email
sir.
was it that the narrative from the department heads are in?
It's like additional.
Right? I saw it, but I can't.
That should be in both sets, so
Yep.
both versions, but definitely in the first one, I remember that was presented in the first version.
So that total is all of the items for the fire department, 114,001, those the reductions that are listed there. And of the 114, there's a recommendation to restore 79,351 of it. In the
Probably
event,
need the chief here.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
moving on to the next one, 311, that's paving from 1,050,000 down to 750,000, which the town manager mentioned earlier.
Can I mean, I do have another question about the encumbered funds from fiscal 24 into fiscal 25. Do we know, like, were those funds were not incorporated into the budgeted paving amount for fiscal 25, were they?
I thought they were.
For 25, there's,
Like 1 point something million.
I printed that thing too, over there. They have 950,000 for FY 25, and
Budgeted.
350,000 of it is from FY 23.
Okay.
There's
so
nothing in FY 24.
on the last encumbrance report that we got for, I thought it was like 443 was encumbered, so maybe they've used some of that. So from 23, basically the paving encumbrance from prior years was 443,677. This was from August 20th.
Or is that something we've just gotten handed?
This was from the August 20th meeting when we approved the encumbrances from the end of fiscal 24. Stuff that was brought forward into the 25 budget. So
Yeah, the only thing that was encumbered for FY 24 into 25 was the existing FY 23, 350,000 for paving.
okay,
So that got carried from 23 into 24, and now it's being carried into 25.
okay. Oh, so maybe because it says paving and VA cutoff bridge, is that 350 plus the difference? Like it says 443. I guess I'm just, why am I seeing that and not 350,000?
Oh, yes, it is. It's the town's portion of the cutoff bridge.
Okay.
Sorry.
Even
Yes.
though we didn't have to pay that anymore?
We still have to pay a portion of it. We don't have to pay the 22 million. It was down to like 98,000 that we had to pay.
Okay. So basically to break that down.
There's nothing in the 26 budget for encumbered funds that are being used for paving. And in the 25 budget, there was 600,000 that was approved in the general fund, and they're using their FY 23 encumbered paving funds that they didn't use to supplement their 25 budget to give them a total of 950,000, which is a contract that you guys actually approved back in August. So
Okay. Sorry, thank you.
No,
for
you're
helping
fine.
Me get through this.
everybody good with 311? I can move to 312 or
Yeah, I
whatever
mean,
the
we'll have
next
to
one
come
is.
back to that to finalize that,
Mhm.
but because there's still proposals on the table, right?
Mhm.
Sorry. for the-
So then the Department 321 is the highway garage, and as part of the recommendation, as part of the request to reduce their budgets, the Public Works Director reduced the repair of the building roof for 50,000. It went from 70 to 20. And then
Is
moving,
that going into reserve?
what?
Is it okay to just, I mean, would you rather me just wait till the end to ask?
It's,
questions?
my job here is to go through the changes,
Okay.
just to let you know what they are and initially answer any questions that I potentially can, but I'm not gonna speak for other departments.
I think it's fine to ask questions in this case as it comes up, because we're going to go line item by line.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
remember, because the DPW director, and presumably Scott couldn't get called away to deal with the water emergency,
Right.
he'll may not be able to provide all the info about the
Yeah.
funds.
And my question, I think, is something is that was the original.
What's the
amount-
plan for the roof?
Huh?
Your question is, what's the plan for the roof?
Well, my question is that going into a reserve account, or is he actually gonna try to fix the roof for $50,000 less?
It's actually gonna try to fix the roofs for $50,000 left.
Yeah.
The next one's 321, that's the equipment for highway. As the town manager noted, there was 2 pieces of equipment that originally were being requested by the Public Works Department, and recommendation could be for them both to come out of lot or have one of them come out of lot, which would have to be the more expensive one of 200,000, and then the balance be paid from reserves for the mechanic truck, if that was something that you wanted to pursue. And also there's the potential to be able to finance the $200,000 truck. The Public Works Director did get a quote on financing and then reached out to Mascoma Bank, which they didn't get back to us, but I did do the amortization schedule for it. If there's an interest in financing that.
Can you please refresh my memory what our stance is on leasing?
Well, all of the leases that we have, they're called leases. However, at the end of the term, we own the vehicles. And I think it was 2 years ago that Gatsby changed in the way that we handle, not just us, but the entire country handles leases. So leasing seems to work really well for some departments, and Public Works has leased vehicles in the past. Most recently, they purchased 2 trucks outright, one with ARPA and then one with reserves. So
There's not much of a difference.
right, it's an excellent way to be able to upgrade your equipment, have a smaller payment amount versus if you're asking for $200,000 annually because you know that you need to replace X, Y, and Z in year 5, then that's a bigger hit to the taxpayers every year versus if you can purchase a vehicle / lease it, you can have smaller payments.
With commercial equipment such as DPW's equipment, are there longer lease terms available?
5 years.
Because a truck of that nature should last definitely a lot longer. than
Oh, and
that.
they
That's
certainly
considerable.
do. They certainly do. We're not talking about the life of the piece of equipment. We're talking about the life of the amortization to have it.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, yeah, I made the mistake of leasing a vehicle once, so I personally won't do it again, but
Well, again, like I'm
just-
said, when you're a municipality and you lease with the rules that have changed, at the end of the 5 years or whatever the lease term is, you own the vehicle. It's no different than the Leaf that's sitting out here. It was considered to be a lease, and so it's paid off and we own it.
But no, I understand that. I'm just wonder if there's better terms, better ways to finance vehicles. We're not financing anything, right? We're not leasing anything now. We're
No,
paying
we have
everything
leases,
outright.
we have leases in place.
Okay, so
If
why?
you'd
didn't we
like to know which
consider
ones they
leases?
are, you can look in the audit and it has a whole list of them.
So why didn't we consider a lease for this?
Why didn't we?
Yeah, no, this is,
I put a note in there stating you also have the opportunity to consider leasing it 55,000 annually. And that was a rough estimate when I did it. And Brian hasn't, excuse me, the Public Works Director has now gotten the amortization schedule from the tax exempt, and I have one from Mascoma that I
okay,
put
I
together.
guess I'm not seeing the words lease. All I see is lot.
Says
No,
finance.
It says lot for both or reserves, mechanic truck and finance dump truck, 55K annually.
Right, but that finance to me doesn't
Doesn't
mean-
doesn't mean lease.
lease. So financing through the bank is different than leasing, so. That's why I'm questioning that. Okay.
Yep.
You understand this stuff quite well, and we don't. That's why we're asking these questions. So,
I appreciate
Yeah.
that. I didn't say anything.
Go ahead, Gail.
So the next department is 412. Those are appropriations that have been, we have not received yet. We do believe that we're going to receive a petition from Special Needs Support Center. Is that correct, John?
Mhm.
And then the other ones, we haven't heard anything on yet. So those have been removed from the budget, knowing that if they come back, we'll have to put them on. Yes.
I did hear from the health council, we do have their petition the next.
Oh.
They didn't ask for the same amount, they petitioned for a larger amount, I believe. Don't hold me to this number, but I believe it was 5,382.
Oh, okay. So can you get that to us?
Send it right now.
I may have seen it and failed to get it to you, Gail.
So that, the difference between the 977 and 5382.
Mhm.
is what the, petition I received was last week. So yes, I did.
Okay, so for the appropriations across the board, we know that we have some that haven't submitted anything. They may be potentially submitting a petition.
Okay.
And we don't have a choice with that. We have to put it in there because it's a voter approval.
Yeah.
So. Then moving on to 421, which is Bugby. As Mark Bradley presented his budget, he had indicated there were a couple typos in it, so small amounts there. Moving on to Department 425, again, those are appropriations, and we'll have to wait and see what they bring forth to us.
So
Moving,
we're approaching maybe 200, 180 or so that might have to be added in
Yeah.
January. Yeah. Sorry, Gail.
no, it's fine. Moving into Department 511, that's Parks and Recreation Administration. There was one slight change in the accident and disability.
Death of dismemberment.
Yes, thank you. And then the biggest piece on that is reducing the accreditation process that was originally requested at 60,000 and it's been reduced now to 20,000, which will be split over do 20,000 and 26 with the request coming forward in FY 27 for 40,000.
Okay.
Moving on to 512, this is another Parks and Recreation line item, and those are just corrections from the census. Same thing with 514. Moving into 521 is got some meat in it here. That's the actual Parks and Recreation when they go out and take care of our land and our property. And as part of the request that was made to Parks and Recreation to reduce their budget, these are items that Parks and Rec Director came forward with.
And that includes this potential truck for the lot,
Correct.
right?
Or two vehicles, yeah.
And then moving down to 527, this is Maxfield, and again, in an effort to participate in reducing the budget, the Parks and Rec Director took the gator out, which was 27,000. Option to either, recommended to either come out of lot or out of reserves. So moving down to 528, that's Maxfield grounds, building and grounds. And we have a building over there that's been there for multiple years that really needs to be torn down. And it's come up a few different times and we've never done anything with it. I think the challenge that we're having is if we want to hold our residents accountable for their buildings that are not habitable, that the town needs to step up and do the same thing.
The only question is really what the bottom line number is going to be. And I know Scott's working hard to try to find out more detail on that, right?
Question, is the building unsafe to enter?
So the building we're talking about is the merge building. We
Right.
talked about it a little bit at the budget meetings. So there's no access in the building. I mean, it's vacated, it's boarded up, locked up.
Is there
and,
imminent building collapse possible with that building?
I mean, it's
possible, anything's possible, but right now it's not accessible, so it's boarded up. And it was, when Maxfield opened, it was identified at that point in time to take it down, so.
84,000 sounds like an enormous number.
Well, it is an enormous amount. The asbestos abatement study has to be redone. That's about $12,000. And I did talk to Hammond Grinding and told him what I put in the budget. And he just hasn't had a chance to finalize it, but he did say the 80,000 should be plenty to cover
I would hope so.
everything, so. But better safe than sorry on budgeting, so
How long has it been in a state where it's boarded up and not usable?
since 2000, probably 2013 maybe, when the
So
town
we're
bought
looking
it.
at 11, kind of 11 years. It's
Yeah.
been in the state.
Yeah,
We don't really know. It'll fall down tomorrow. Might stay up under 10 years. right?
I mean, it's got a leaking roof.
Yeah.
It's, a lot of stuff's been taken out of it. I mean, it's, there's old ceiling tile, it's just an old
Yeah, I mean, I just asked
abandoned
because
building, so.
84 is a lot, and it can stay up another year, it's not.
Of course, we have just gotten a fire marshal's report, haven't we?
Well, the fire marshal's gonna go out there and look at it because they're cracking down on blighted properties, so. I mean, we have that one that's been that way for a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, I haven't pushed to put money in the budget because of the amount.
Yeah.
But it's time for us to deal with it, so that's why I put money in there. And the fire marshal's gonna go up and he'll take a look at it, tour through it. There's no mechanical systems, the piping's been ripped out of it. It had a best asbestos study done, but because the timeline of that study and when it was done, it's gotta be readdressed, so. Those types of issues are there. The idea is to remove it. We can remove the concrete pad or you can leave the pad. Act 250 allows us to, with the existing permit, we can rebuild on that site if you wanted to, but it have to stay within the footprint of the existing building that was there. So that's kind of the thought process long term.
What is the current threat to public safety of that building?
Somebody could get into it and,
Yeah, but it's all boarded up, you say. So,
yeah, but somebody could get into it.
of course, somebody could
don't
fall
know.
down the Queechee Gorge too.
Yeah, right.
But,
Somebody could get into it, somebody could get hurt, no different than anywhere else, but it's a property that's been abandoned. It's not a safe thing to be inside if you would go inside of it. So it's a risk, it's a liability. So we're just trying to reduce those liabilities. Whether or not you pay for it now, or you pay for it some other time, that's up to you to decide, but we're recommending that we get it taken care of. The fire marshal, I don't know what he'll do. Maybe he'll tell us to fence it, so put a fence around it, which is probably a strong possibility. If that's the case, then we fence it in. That's a cost. And we'll probably rent it.
Got a similar issue at the transfer station. One of those buildings has been the site of a fire marshal visit, and I think we even got a letter today describing that we need to address it with some timeline.
Here, but like Mike was saying, I mean, this is $84,000 we could put towards things that are going to help our town versus just tearing down a building. That's a hard thing to stomach, saying we're just gonna spend $84,000 of taxpayer money when we aren't gonna be able to help put a roof on DPW and save the building, that's a no-brainer to me.
You don't mind? I just like to speak to it as well.
Yeah.
So what is occurring, Lanny, is that the fire marshal's office was recently given authority by the board to enforce the dilapidated building ordinance townwide. And in that, we took a look at ourselves too, because if we're enforcing these rules on members of the community, we want to make sure we take care of our own backyard. And we've identified 2 buildings that potentially meet the qualifications of a public safety hazard through the ordinance, and we've identified this property at Maxfield, on the Maxfield property, and one at the landfill location. So the public safety reviews happened on one, and one is being currently scheduled for the Maxfield property as well.
Kim, you have,
I just want to let you know, there's a hand up from a member of the public. I don't know if and when you want to.
you might as well hear it now, and then I think we understand this particular item. So let's hear from the public and then we keep going.
Okay, go ahead, Heidi.
Good evening, Heidi Dutaway, River Junction, Vermont. This might be a Scott Cooney question, but I'm very familiar with the dilapidated housing ordinance. With the buildings that the town has, I know that the one that I'm thinking of is not, it's not a good candidate for what I'm going to actually ask if these buildings may be, but would a fire department training session or a safe burn be an option?
Scott, if you have thoughts on that, please feel free to come up.
So Heidi, while that is allowed by the environmental code for us to do that, the cost typically associated with making a building clean enough to do the prescribed burn is a cost in and of itself. So for example, the asbestos abatement that Mr. Hausler spoke to that would have to occur prior to the burn, as well as any other hazard contaminants that are identified by the environmental board. But a live burn is possible once you mitigate all those other hazards first, and then a burn could occur.
Thank you.
Hold up, Scott. Let me just follow up with you on that. In order to tear the building down, you still have to mitigate those things too, right?
That's correct.
So regardless of what you do, we still have to pay the money to mitigate those problems associated with asbestos. or
The
the other-
shingles would need to be
Right,
removed.
so
those
no
kind of
matter
things.
what, we're still gonna have to pay that amount.
Yep, you
So-
could burn the shell, but
Yeah.
you have to remove most of the hazards first.
And then, so no matter what we do, we're gonna have to pay for that. I'm just curious if it's cheaper if we have just just burn the shell down. Is it cheaper to, at that time, have knots come in and, cart it away, or is it cheaper to demolish it whole? That's the question, I guess, that Heidi
Yep.
is finally.
Sure, I'm not sure I could give you an answer on that, but I'm sure that we could look and see what the cost to ready the building would be for a live burn, and could do one if we're asked.
Right. Would you welcome that training opportunity?
We always welcome training.
Yeah, okay.
Gail, going to continue, 622.
Okay. 622 is planning and development. A couple of the changes here. The planning director disclosed when she gave her presentation, it was a change in the position, the census for the position. And then going to 623 is housing and conservation. This is an effort by the planning director to participate and reduce in funding. And then moving to 912, which is the debt portion. Those are two items that I've highlighted because we need to consider the Fairview Terrace bond and whether or not Public Works will finance one of their vehicles.
The update I can give on Fairview Terrace is that given the likelihood of litigation over easements, which could take 10 to 12 months, it seems that we won't have to borrow an awful lot of money in the short term. Very small amount actually for this coming fiscal year, because construction, the big cost associated with that project could only happen after we've gotten all the easements we need.
Is it cheaper to go easements or eminent domain?
Well, you need that land one way or the other. Well, the easement would be a friendly negotiated outcome, but we might have to go through the eminent domain process, and that's what takes 10 to 12 months, according to Attorney Monahan, if the one or more holdouts we've identified continue to be hostile to the project.
What is cheaper?
No doubt, it's going to be you could avoid all the legal fees if you were able to negotiate a reasonable number for purchase of easements. But first of all, we need to identify what is the fair market value of these easements. And we're just talking to appraisers now to get us that data as to the 7 or 8 easements we need in total. How much is the fair market value for those? We can present those numbers as offers to these property owners. And if there's one or more that refuse to work with us, then litigation's the only answer, and that's expensive and time consuming.
Right, no, understandable, yeah.
Just relating to the, is there any consequence in deferring bond obligation
No.
that was voted by the?
No, I've talked with the bond bank and with legal counsel. Everybody's confirmed that you have actually quite a lot of latitude as to when you need the money and how many tranches you might seek the money. They seem to indicate to me that a delay of a year or so would not be a big problem as far as they were concerned. If it were to linger into the 3, 4, 5 years, then they do have the suggestion that might then provide so many different circumstances that you might want, once again, the voters
Yeah.
to confirm it.
Thank you.
Can one more question on that. I almost hate to ask this question, but the cost of legal services, would they exceed the cost of re-engineering the project to go a different
I
route?
have spoken with Chris Holsworth and the planning off in the DPW, and he's talking with the engineer now about whether there's a way to find alternative strategies to reconstruct the road and build those retaining walls that would need less or hopefully no participation by the one landowner who has been hostile to the project.
Right.
So we haven't yet determined that.
I pushed pretty hard for having the concrete walls, but if we went with steel sheets, I wonder if the steel sheets would be less impact on that homeowner. And if that were, I think the board would be willing to acquiesce in that way as well. So,
We're looking into whether that's feasible,
okay. And
whether adjustments to the design are feasible.
right, in terms of the adjustment to the back wall, whether that back wall could actually be pushed back as well and put sheet panels on there to gain more road surface as well. So there's, different ideas. So I just wondering, it would make better neighbors to re-engineer it. I don't know what the cost element would be though. And that would be what brings if we went with steel panels, it seems like it would be cheaper than doing concrete. But whether it have to be totally engineered all over again.
We're looking at all those options.
Okay.
Amy.
All right, and then Department 921 is the reserves. You'll see here the fire chief and the planning director as part of their effort to reduce budgets. They reduce the amount of money to be deposited into their reserve accounts. The last 2 expense items are the workman's comp and the property and liability insurance that we received from the LCT last week. And
Those just corrections to the numbers, like the savings. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
We have passed
then-
over a couple department heads who have now rejoined
Yeah.
us. I don't know if you want to.
let's-
yeah, I just have
Yeah.
talk about revenue.
Yeah.
That's a positive thing. So the original budget that was put together didn't have anything coming out of the unassigned fund. So we temporarily can put in the $479,091 for the unassigned fund. We have $126,055 for ARPA funding that was included in the resolution that can be used for FY '26. And after further review with the bank regarding the interest that we receive on our general fund, we're proposing that we increase it from 200,000 to 320,000. So that's an increase of $120,000. And if the market falls off and we don't get that,
What are you calling that? 300,000, 320,000? What do you?
It's interest income.
Interesting.
It's, yeah, it's already to the 200,000 is already in there. And so we're gonna increase it from 200 to 320.
Gotcha.
Three other items that the town manager and I looked at today. One was the state current use. Looking at increasing it from the 100 that's there up to 105 or 108. Being conservative, you probably would want to go with a 105, and that's based on the history part of it.
I don't see, so is there a reference in the revenue section of the budget on that?
And the revenue part of the book, yeah. So it's on page 1 of the original budget that you
Current
received.
year, is that what you said?
No, I said current use.
State current use. Okay, okay.
And then the next item was the state highway aid. It's been trending of growing $5,000-6,000 every year. So looking at proposing to move that from 295,000 to 300,000. And then the last item would be with dispatch, specifically dispatch services, not to get confused with the 911 grant that we have. So dispatch services, we heard from the supervisor up there today that they have new contracts that are gonna be going in place. So we are comfortable in increasing that particular line from 500,000 to 572,795. So there's just some additions that we can put in for the revenue. And with that being said, Gail's done talking. If
So
somebody
For the
else-
moment.
I think we'll have questions for some of the department heads. Let me just, so
Wait a minute, Gail, can I ask one question, Gail? Because we have it and people out there don't have it, can you speak what that will be for an increase on a $250,000 house that we're looking at?
No, I can't.
We have it right here. It was given to us by you, though.
That doesn't include the current use of the dispatch.
Correct.
Or the interest on deposit. Or no,
It
doesn't
includes
include
the interest on
so-
deposit, but the 3 that we identified today are not included.
Does
in
not include that. Okay, so
What was the-
when, all right. When
At
will
our,
that-
at our next meeting.
Which could be tomorrow or Thursday. It's your choice, of course.
okay, so just a couple items, just to, I just want to sort of summarize what I took from it. Some of the big items that are still to look at are the paving, right, 300,000. The house, the building to demolish 84. Then there's a proposal to put together some vehicle purchases in the lot. To save some money in the budget. Fire department is asking for 79,000 in restoration of funds, which we'll have to talk to Chief Cooney about. Okay. Jim and then Brandon.
How depleted will this leave reserves in terms of like the ones on this correction page, the reduction page, the 921? That's fire and planning, saying you're gonna put less in reserves. Are there still other reserves going into
I will let them speak to
accounts
that.
that we're considering using
departments.
reserves for, like all this, you know, whether it's the Parks and Rec truck or I guess I'm curious how department heads who are, it's being proposed to use reserves instead of general fund. How are you gonna feel about your existing reserve accounts? Mostly public works, fire.
Well, I think we're hoping that we can at least put some of them on the lot, and then if they do fail, they can still have the option of taking it out of their reserves, obviously, with, as long as it's a state contract and get board approval, so. Because it would be a negative thing to not be able to fund those reserves. I think that we've had multiple conversations about making sure that we have a CIP in place, and some departments are really, really good at that, and when you skip a year, we're actually gonna have to start deferring, so, but that's all I'm gonna say. I'm sure that Chief Cooney or the planning director may speak on their behalf.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about the fire department reserve account. So typically we deposit, as for probably the last four or five fiscal years, I've deposited about 180,000 into that account, give or take. And it goes into three categories within that capital plan. One is to purchase fleet vehicles. One is to purchase self-contained breathing apparatus replacements at timing intervals, about every 10 to 15 years. And then every 5 years to purchase the structural firefighting ensemble for the staff. What I removed in this budget to fund the general fund budget is the deposit into the fleet account, which is 113,494. Looking into the future as to what our next major purchase we'll be asking the board to consider would be the replacement of fire engine, slated probably be ordered. We'll be talking about it next fiscal year or the fiscal year after. And we're talking, it's $1 million truck that we'll be looking for. We never intended to have, we're not saving it at a high enough rate to purchase the vehicle outright. So a combination of a down payment, trade-in of an existing vehicle, and some type of lease purchase financing, bond financing would need to occur anyways. So given that we were going to need to borrow for that large purchase anyways, I felt it was safe to reduce the fleet deposit this year, but would encourage you to reconsider it in the next budgets.
That really helps clarify that and Gail's like suggestion that potentially a lot funding, and if it fails, potential for more reserves. That I think I wasn't clicking. So thank you for that. And then the only other question I have for the moment is where I think Chief Sheldon is on Zoom, but I was wondering if any departments, Parks and Rec, Fire, Police, have done any research on using opioid funds on anything that would qualify in the operating budget?
Gail had asked and presented both the rules required for the opioid funds to be used. Most of those are educational outreach items that didn't directly correlate to anything I have budgeted for currently. They would have to be new programs we could use the funds for. So they didn't really offset anything, at least in the fire department.
Philip Scott, don't sit in it.
Well, Brandon was next, I think.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
Oh, and Chief Sheldon has his hand up too.
All right.
sorry.
Well, I just wanted one quick question, and then I may have something to say after that, after an answer. Is the only thing I'm seeing for volunteered reduction in budget from the police department, this moving of the cruiser, 95,000 or so, into the proposed use of lot?
No, let's see if I can
75,000.
find it.
I'm looking at Department 211, yeah. So,
Oh, I'm sorry, I may have misspoken, I'm sorry. I was just trying to think of the memo we got from Chief Sheldon on that.
Correct.
The idea was to pay for these things out of reserves, with the alternative that I'm proposing, that rather than shortchanging his reserves, which are pretty meager, it seems, that we could use the lot funds for at least 75 of that 95 for vehicle replacement. So sorry about that.
Correct. There was not very much meat in that department to begin with. He was very slim this year in proposing his budget. So yes, what was proposed here is the 95,000 as part of the reduction, which is a substantial amount for his department.
It's pretty significant right there.
And you also have a comment or other question, and then we'll hear from the chief.
I think Brendan said he had a comment.
I think I'll withhold it for now. I will probably bring up more things later. Thank you.
Do you want to hear from the chief?
Let's hear from the chief and then other people have questions.
Go ahead, Chief Sheldon.
Hello. First question about the opioid money. Nothing in the current budget, FY26 proposed budget, that would be offset by this, because we just didn't plan for that to take place, as Chief Cooney has said in his budget. Certainly can look at that in the future, and something with stuff we're looking at right now to offset some other budget items or training options. Again, it's fairly limited in scope, so not a lot we can take out of operating expenses. And as far as the overall budget, I did reduce the PD budget into my first proposal. If you recall the slides I showed, I don't have the slides in front of me, but we did reduce the budget itself by over $100,000. I want to say it was 130 something thousand. And then now we're taking an additional amount of money, 95,000, 75,000, whatever Gail said, out of our budget to pay, to pay for stuff out of reserves. So we're over 200,000 on a budget as slim as it is. So we've cut quite a bit.
Yeah, can I get Chief Cooney up there to speak about this recommended restoring for the fire department? Can you talk about that?
Sure. I think we're talking about the lot items, right? Are those the restored items?
No.
You have
What
on,
particular line are you looking at?
Yeah, I'm curious myself.
well, we're at $79,351 restoring, recommended restoring. That you,
Oh, yeah.
So
do
it
you-
looked like
do you have a
114.
copy of
this-
the list? The
I do
entire-
not have a copy of the list,
Well,
just
good
the
thing we
budget.
have
list.
copies.
But I'm just gonna know what they're talking about.
yeah, no, that's why we're get confused because there's too many things out there for paperwork.
These are some of the items. But they're part of your budget reduction.
Oh, the stuff I submitted last.
Correct.
You only got a couple things to worry about. We got all sorts of departments to worry about. Consider yourself lucky.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, and they total this number. Right
Okay,
here.
that's the number they're referring to.
Correct.
I see what's been done. So across the board, when I approached the request to reduce the fire department budget by 225,000, I was looking to preserve, employee operations, my priorities, health and wellness of the staff, those kind of items. So I whittled away on items that we either have purchased in the past on a restorative cycle, meaning like in the communications line of the budget, which is
Probably at 320.
yeah.
10,320.
320,0100. So I reduced typically what we do. So the portable radios that the staff uses, I have, 24 on the floor plus 3 fire marshals. Each of those radios runs between $6,500 and $8,000 per portable radio that they carry. So rather than bulk purchasing all at once when they need replacement radios, that would cost us $100,000 to outfit the entire department. I've been at the practice of nipping away at it and purchasing either 3 or 4 radios on an annual basis. And by the time I get through the entire department, it's time to keep doing it again. So so I stopped that process to make cuts. in this.
Again, what line was that? Chief?
0100, so that's 320,0100. So it went from 20,300 requested originally down to 8,800.
10,320.
No,
Yep.
10,221.
221.
10, okay.
30 in the budget.
Wait a minute, 10,221.
Yeah.
You go on.
320.
Good.
0100. HFD equipment communications.
320. I'm getting there. 100. Okay. All right, I got you.
Yep, so that was one, that's what was adjusted to move that up so I can purchase some radios out of this one. That was one of the requests. Fire suppression equipment, which is 10,221, 331,0100. I think I spoke to you at a previous meeting about the self-rescue bailout devices I wanted to purchase for staff. That's a $14,000 item to have them carry it on their person. And that is, as we've allowed buildings to exceed the 2-story levels, it's recommended by NFPA to have
Oh, Jesus.
a bailout
Great.
device. So this is when a firefighter encounters a personal emergency, either trapped by fire, smoke, or has a air pack failure within the structure. It's a device that clips onto a windowsill, allows them to self-roll out a window, and helps them escape the emergency. So that was the bailout devices that were there. Technical water equipment. We moved some, replacing some of our ropes
Again, line
and
item,
extrication equipment.
line item.
Technical is 331-0200, 2215.
3-1. Counter-effective water, okay.
Yep.
So that's taken, you decreased that by what?
We decreased that, we had decreased, we went from 24.5 down to 13.5, and in this proposal, it's restoring 11,000.
Back up by 11,000. Okay, so my question to you, Chief,
Yeah,
is what does the loss of these items mean to the health and welfare of your employees and also to the safety of the residents of Hartford?
well, it's a tough question, Lanny, because it supposes that I can predict the future and when an emergency
Well,
should occur.
No, I know.
And
it's a lot of
unfortunately, I
ifs.
couldn't. I can't predict when a firefighter is going to get trapped in a building and need a rescue device. It's just my job to assess risks, look for possible solutions to mitigate those hazards, and then make those proposals to you, and then have you decide to fund them or not. So that's a lot of my items are related to those kind of things. What isn't in the budget is some of the office equipment items that got cut, like the computers and stuff like that. Those seemed to be low hanging fruit, but they were also there so I could install them in the fire station. We're in the process of building at the moment. So I wanted to have some funds in there so that I actually put furniture in the building and things like that when we're all over with. But are you speaking to any specific equipment or?
Well, I'm just wondering if it comes to the point of, like, let's use firefighter safety.
Sure.
Okay,
Yep.
which we're all concerned about.
Mhm.
We all hope that the call is made to pull everybody out of the building before there's a need to self-extricate.
Sure.
With the newer firefighting tactics, that is much more, what's the term I want to use? It's approached much more with caution towards life safety of firefighters, correct?
Sure, there's a risk benefit analysis that occurs by every incident commander has to do, because we're duly sworn to protect the public, right?
No, I understand that. Yeah.
So we gotta assume a certain level of risk. It's our job to put ourselves out there in those kind of emergencies. So if somebody is trapped, we're gonna take tremendous steps and tremendous risks to accomplish
I
this.
understand. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right in the mirror.
Yes, thanks. I'm, hearing all about this kind of equipment being cut from fire, self extricating equipment. I mean, folks who put their lives on the line, like certain equipment's being cut that would help save them, you've got someone trying to, who budgeted $70,000 for a roof to make sure we don't have leaks in one of our buildings. And now they're going to try to do that same thing with $20,000. Elsewhere here, we're pretending that we're not funding advanced transit. The parks are not going to be accredited, in the same amount of time. And that $15,000 fewer materials and supplies in Parks and Rec. I say all this because, like, I see all these departments and they actually are doing the teamwork that was referenced by you folks. Oh, this is all one big team. We all made budget cuts except for PD.
That's not true.
And I understand that there wasn't a lot of meat in the budget. Like, I take that comment for what it is. I believe it. But also, like, it seemed like that wasn't that was the only explanation given. for why that department did not participate in the budget cuts as much as the others. So that's all I wanted to say earlier.
Okay, Mary, had her hand up?
Yeah, I actually,
That was fair.
Chief Cooney, this was a quick question. When I was looking at that same, the technical water equipment, 221-331-0200, in the narrative, it says vehicle extraction tool 49,237. Is that the same as the 58,000 extrication tools that we were just talking about that Gail went over?
If you're talking about the one she was proposing, we fund from lot instead.
Right.
It is. Originally, I proposed a set for the rescue truck to replace the gas-powered hydraulic system that's on there. It's aged. It's about 15 years old. This would switch it to an all-electric version of it.
Oh,
It's
okay.
another set of jaws of life to carry on that
Okay.
rescue truck.
I just was wondering which
Yeah,
was.
the first iteration of budgets, we reduced it down to one of the 3 devices we were gonna
Okay.
purchase, and now we're bringing it back up to its original in the lot.
Right.
Suggested from lot.
By the way, Landy had asked,
Yeah.
how many tools do we need for the fleet of trucks? Is it one set per truck, and where do we stand on that?
It's 3, so it's 1 primary set on the first new engine out of Station 1, and 1 set on the Queechee ambulance is where we carried that one because they respond to that different district, and then 1 for the rescue truck on the Savoy. Those are the 3 we checked.
So it's the Halmatro is.
Palmacho is the one we're looking to, well,
Is
we're
that
gonna go out to
past,
bid, but
is that past its service life?
yeah, 15 years is stretching it. Plus, we switched to away from a hydraulic. It's the cutting power of our battery powered electric tools is more than that Palmacho
But
system.
can that Halmatro be rebuilt? New,
We replaced the tools a while ago, and it's at the maximum capacity of the pump. So it's not ergonomically effective for one.
then weight is a big.
Yeah,
thing.
weight is a big deal. The maneuverability is a big deal. It's hydraulics, gas powered engines. We're thinking about, replacing it with the modern technology.
And
Plus,
is there-
the vehicles have changed a lot too.
It's a trade-in value for that Halmatro.
Oh yeah, there'll probably be something from the manufacturer when we do it. It won't be huge.
And that cost alone for an electric set of jaws is what?
Yeah, so I think the quote I gave Gail and John, we got 2 quotes when we were doing the budget process. One was like 52, one was like 62. But it's to buy the jaws, the spreader, and a ram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is what the Halmatro has, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Yep.
I will point out that Brian was absent when there were several questions for DPW.
Yeah, I
I
was
don't know
gonna
if you.
talk about, we usually take a break
Oh,
around
yeah.
this time, so I wanted to mention that. Kim, I saw your hand was up, and I want to ask you, John, and you, Gail, a question about decisions we can make tonight without keeping us here all night that put us on track to meet just on Thursday to potentially finalize. So if we took our 5-minute break or so, like we normally do, and we came back and made a decision on the 300,000 on paving, the vehicles or the proposed lot items, and maybe the fire department restoration, with those decisions made, can we come back Thursday, or do we think we will still have enough outstanding items that we need to be here tomorrow as well?
Well, originally we had in mind 2 meetings this week, and Wednesday was here as a placeholder in case we thought we needed it, in case we got bogged down. My suggestion would be that we come back after our break, answer whatever other loose end questions there might be, discuss these other 2 or 3 topics, and maybe then we'd have a better idea of how confident we are that we can give you an updated set of numbers
Yeah.
for Thursday, such that tentative decisions can be made, subject to final approval in January.
Well, I can, let me just preface this and then we can discuss it after break, but the enterprise funds, if I still have just a couple outstanding questions about those, is tonight to address, and then the other thing is that I do still want to discuss the town manager's salary and whatever resources there are for select board training for fiscal 26. And I got the report you gave me, or you gave the board for the funds that were encumbered from 23 or 24, but I couldn't understand it. So anyway, I'd like to just touch on those things and yeah, but we can do that. Great.
Okay, let's take a break and come back. We can have our questions answered, and if we can make some decisions on the lot, and the paving, we'll see where we stand in getting new numbers. want to start off with this? I'm gonna just get.
Sure.
the groove here.
And then actually also, are we not going over the whole glide path thing tonight? Is that? not-
Kind of if you want to, I mean, it's pretty.
I guess actually one just overarching question was, because this is like, instead of it being a quarter, it's like a third of the year. And I know there's a completely normal answer to this that you've probably told us before, but why would we be at 124% of taxes collected? at this point?
Question two.
They're billed all at once. And then you have a receivable for what hasn't been received yet. And
Okay.
that number will.
So that's just the build.
Correct, and that number will change every month.
Yeah.
Depending on what we receive for the state cash flow from the state of Vermont, that for payments that we pay to the school.
Okay.
So that's a fluid number that changes.
Yeah.
It got my attention too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said, how can
I mean, I
this
had like
be?
some little nitpicky things, but otherwise I think that answers that question enough. Well, actually, well, since I'm right there, the other one was the ones for the under finance insurance. Was that just because the GL codes changed for, here, let me see if I can.
Like in the water fund, you mean?
Oh. No, I think it was in the general fund. These pages are-
Tell me what page, the
I
page
will,
in the top
just-
right hand corner.
I got them all mixed up because they were printed back to back, so I don't see.
Good for
What
you,
document
saving
and then what
paper.
page?
Huh?
I said, good for you, saving paper.
What-
It does, it's not helpful for,
What are you looking at, Kim?
Yeah, what document is it first?
it's the glide path, the year-to-date budget report.
From when?
The one that was in the board.
That came in the most recent version of the select board
All
packet.
right, well, never mind, I can't find it.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
Okay, never mind that.
You can shoot me an email about it.
Okay.
Or send it to the town manager and the town manager can.
Gotcha, cool, okay, yeah, it was like one of the, yeah, I'll do that. Okay, and then, so can you clarify what is available for funds for select board training in fiscal 25 and any for fiscal 26 if they're not used?
Think that do you have the 26 budget in front of you? If you want to take a look at
Yeah,
that.
that's 0 in there.
And then I'll look into 25. and see what you-
It said balance expenditures for 25, 57,757.19.
Where do you see where you?
Well, that was in here. I wrote the difference, when it said budget, month to date, year to date.
Oh, in that
balance.
report. Yeah, but I don't think that had just the select board training. That was like
Correct.
all the select board
Okay.
expenses.
What-
That's what I thought. That's what I was wondering.
So
What
for
are you
recruitment
referencing,
and-
Mary? Sorry, what are you referencing, Mary?
I was just, it was from the paper, the
What paper?
information in there. And now I can't find
It's
it
an
because I
email?
wrote it down on a separate sheet of paper. It was the select board budget 25, 24. There was, budget, month to date, year to date and balance.
Uh,
You don't know where the,
That's
where
at
that's
the
coming
glide
from?
path document we're talking about.
Right.
this one.
And then there, after select board, it went boards
Okay,
and
that's where-
commissions.
that's where I'm
and
at
it went
right
town
now. Oh.
Manager.
Are you an extra copy?
No.
Okay, I've got mine right now. I've got it right in front of me right now, so.
Okay.
All right,
Essentially, I would like to know if we want to fund any select board training for fiscal year 26. And I know Mary had some thoughts about that. I don't know if that was to the whole board or just to me and Don.
Well, I sent it to you and John, but I'll say it in case people didn't read it anywhere. My thought was, similar to last year, that the select board sometimes has to also cut some of their budget, but I also felt like in the last several years, every time there was a select board training, but there's abatement trainings, et cetera, through VLCT, I thought that those are great trainings, great workshops. There's usually many people from different municipalities there. And I've learned something new each time. And I thought perhaps maybe for 26, we could, I'm open to a select board training, but I thought maybe individuals could attend online a training through VLCT. It certainly costs us a lot less, sometimes $0, sometimes $8 through passive, and then make a 2-3 minute talk at our select board meetings as to what we learned, because I think that they're very valuable and they're not expensive, but there's a great deal to be learned. Anyway, that was a thought I had for some training.
Gail, do you have a?
Yeah, so you currently still have $19,093 available for training.
Okay, but basically we don't have, so if those are not entirely used in fiscal 25, will they be encumbered?
You would need to ask to have them be encumbered, yeah.
Okay. Can I ask that now since I won't be on the board then?
No.
Okay. All right.
So we still have 19,000.
So 19,000, which should
Just we
be
want to
fine.
carry them into a future fiscal year, we'd ask to encumber them in a future.
Right, but in theory, the board could use, 10,000 in the rest of fiscal 25. Not that there's anyone coordinating trainings after March, maybe, but hopefully. Anyway, I think that answers my question. I could not detect that from the report you did give me. At that point, there was, maybe 22,1, and we've used some since then.
It was 22,103, and then you've spent $3,009.85.
Okay, great. Okay.
Yes, I think we should encumber some of that, if only to have someone with some design skills draw up the things that we already decided at the training a few months ago, with those big pieces of paper. We have this basically work product that we all did together.
The strategic planning.
There we go. And yes, they're not presented in such a way where we can easily reference them or use them as goals, or the public could see what we're hoping to accomplish. So, and I would support that same thing again next year, especially if we have $500 for someone to create an actual document from it. So let's say $500 to create a document from the one we already did, and then however much funding for the same thing next year, and then $500 more for next year's work product. Something like that.
The communications
Yes.
specialist is working on the document.
Yes, I think we shared some kind of preliminary
Little
from
draft.
to you, which
Yeah.
I thought you found pleasing.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, then, so my final request for this portion of it would be, could it definitely be included in the narrative that funds have been encumbered for fiscal 25? Just because like what it looks in our budget books currently, like it has not been funded since 2023. And I think just for future board members, public, it would be helpful to know that that is actually in there. And honestly, on that note, we've come in under budget on select board salaries for historically.
That's because you had one or more board members at the time that was not taking the payment.
Right. I mean, I think several of us don't take all of our, stipends, and that's an option. Anyway, I guess it's a consideration. We could at least bump it down like 5,000, if not 10,000. Would that be irresponsible?
To bump what down?
Select board salaries.
Well, you're gonna have
Right.
potentially
I don't think
four
you
new
can say
members with
that.
different philosophies
We
coming
can,
on
yeah.
board in March.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't
I
know.
wouldn't want to affect people who are coming on.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about trainings? In the trainings that we've done, first off, as I've said to you in the past, I don't think that we have an effective way to gauge select board training, the effectiveness of it. we've had a lot of training, okay? When there were former members of the board, we had a lot of training. And quite frankly, I don't think it did much good sometimes, the training that we did. I think before we do, and I've stated this to you in the past, and I'm sorry I haven't been more proactive about it. Before we take on more selective board training, we have to find a way to measure the effectiveness of it. Because this board changes so rapidly from year to year, you could put a lot of money into somebody for training and then get off the board the very next year. And if we're going to have trainings, I think that we should have basic trainings on this big thing we're going through right now, budget preparation, budgeting. A session on effective communication, select board communication, of that. And that's it, because we do change so much and we need to have that training right away for incoming board members, like effective board communications things. And the budgeting thing, we should have that in like in September. Okay.
The VLCT does provide a budgeting workshop.
Yeah, I mean, and like Barry said, it's a good way to go through that stuff. I'd rather not see us put a whole lot more money towards it. I'm not opposed to encumbering things, but until we have a way to measure the effectiveness, what we already done. I mean, we've got this stuff that Gabrielle Luke did, which I thought was phenomenal. It gave us different strengths. We haven't leveraged those strengths. We haven't leveraged any of that stuff that we took from Gabrielle Luke. We've just sat dormant on all that training. And that's unfortunate that we didn't utilize that. We have measure strengths within each person on the board that we took that training. But what do we do with it? To me, that's a wasted training.
May I just respond and then I know we'll move on.
Yeah, let's get on to something
Yeah,
else.
we clearly, like, this has evolved from, and this was an HCORE recommendation. It was the kind of thing that initially was supposed to be really about town leadership, understanding diversity and equity and doing those kinds of training, was the original intent of some of the funding for the select board training. We went through some bumpy roads and kind of evolved. Quite honestly, I still think that's a valuable experience for a municipal leadership to just understand the equity within our community and within the organization and with the staff of the town of Hartford. This is going to be for future boards to decide, and I'll chime in as a resident when it's time. But in the meantime, I would hope that that the board will utilize whatever funds are encumbered
Definitely,
for
yes.
training.
I sincerely hope that 19,000, there's money left in that long after. I think that's a lot of money for select board.
How much does Abundant Sun cost us though? We have an Abundant Sun training. What does that cost us?
Yeah,
It
but
was like 1,500, or no, it was like $3,000 per session.
Okay.
John?
So just a couple of things in terms of finishing up this list that Gail put us through. First, want to note that we had asked several different larger departments to come up with kind of assigned contributions from their departments, and everyone did quite well with that. And there was some question about police and their participation. They actually did provide these savings of $95,000, which was in excess of what we asked them to identify. So thank you, Chief Sheldon, for doing that. Also, we have a couple of things that are open still for the DPW director. I think there's been some concern about the roof reduction and what that's about. And then we certainly need to get into this paving discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to discuss both of those and make some decisions, at least on the pavement. That's our big item. Our biggest like cost reduction.
So I put 50,000 into the budget this year for the roof because it's 20-year shingle, so it was done in 2004, showing its age. Could it be put off for another year or two? Yes, we're not aware of any leaks in the building yet. It's being more proactive and getting the roof replaced. We do have a lot of damage to the soffits. just due to how it was installed when the building was built. So we want to look to improve that. We have to replace the soffits that go along the side of that portion of the building. This is just the admin side of the building. This is not the metal portion for the garage portion of the building. So I did, when I was asked to come up with 150,000, I did take that out. I saw that as an item of, it was a discretionary spending item for that. And so that's for the 50,000. I do still have 20,000 there. What's more important is, if you're familiar, if you've been down there, we have a mobile vehicle lift system for the trucks down there. And that needs some safety improvements to it. So that's the $15,000. The other 20 that's left, it would be to do that. And I would highly recommend we keep that 15 in there for safety reasons for that piece of equipment. I mean, we had a 6-wheeler up in the sky today, and God forbid something should happen in regards to the controlling of that. So.
And then Brian, while you were away, we did just highlight the issue that we have current reductions based on what the department heads were willing to suggest as reductions. But there has been a suggestion of looking at the highway paving portion of the budget, which is $1,050,000. And the question is whether the town, in your opinion, can bear some reduction to that line item.
Initially, I'll say no with that. I had a conversation with Chris today. Chris does detailed plans in regards to what paving is. And the reality of it is, we have actually about a 1.4 million that could be done in 26. So we already are going to be facing some cuts with the roads that need to be done with that. So if you cut funding for it, we're going to go through and we're going to take a look at what, right now, basically West Hartford Road needs to be done. We need to do Queechee Main Street. It just has to be done. We have roads that we just cannot push off anymore. So whatever you cut, you're going to push down some of the other roads. Jericho Street, which is, we're looking at like $1 million project for the 27 fund. If things get pushed off, that may push that street down the road. So any cuts you do now will impact future road work that gets done in future years. So
In terms of a mileage, $300,000 is going to give you how many miles of pavement?
it depends, Lenny, on what we're doing. If you're just doing an overlay, you're going to get more. But if we're going to be doing some, our own work or reclamation of the road, we're not going to get as much. I know historically when I was up in Thetford for about 750,000, you could get about a mile. If you're doing a reclamation of the road, that's how much it costs you to do it. So an overlay, we're probably going to get, if you just take a look at, like Queechee Main Street is just, a section of it is an overlay that, it's just to finish that up is $220,000 to go, the 2 miles of maybe what we're doing at Queechee Main Street. But that's just an overlay of it.
Okay, thank you.
A lot of this is variable based on petroleum prices at the time the bids come in.
I understand. Yeah.
And the other thing we need to think about too is our scheduling of this. We had, got some emails with John today. We need, once this, once the voters vote on this, if it passes, we need to get at the bids right away and get on the scheduling for this, because the longer we wait to get on a paver schedule, it just, we're at their whim then of when it's going to be done, when the work's going to get done for that. So, we would like, as soon as July 1st came around, we need to get this work going and get it done in the construction season. So.
I remember it being mentioned a couple of years ago that, because there was a great concern about putting more money into the paving budget, that there was kind of a limit resource wise, person power wise, that you could use like 700,000, right? But you wouldn't use like the full $1 million like in a year. Is that?
No, I think the full $1 million, like it could be used very easily with that. Okay. One of the things we've been good the last couple of years trying to do is like road and aid grants. Yeah. So we're trying to piggyback monies we can get from V-Trans for the ditching. Like take Christian Street last year, all the ditching on that, we did that work itself. So we got the road and aid for that. Yeah. And then we had Blacktop come in and actually do the paving for that. So that's where some of these projects, if we push some of these ones off too, we may also then jeopardize some of the grants that we're looking to get for future years for that too. So.
Good.
So the we got the year-to-date report from, just for the whole general fund, and so for summer maintenance, is that where paving would be?
Right, and we haven't done much of it yet. That's because with pipe being it, as soon as they turn around next spring, we're gonna get that work done. That's why you're not seeing money spent out of that account. So,
Okay, because looks like there's only been 275 out of 1.15 million. Okay, so you're confident you can spend $870,000?
Pike is, they've told us we're number one on their list. They got tied up with the I-91 project last year. And that they just weren't able to get to us, so.
Do you actually have contracts with them already? Is that,
Yeah,
I know we
we've
just did a
already
paving
awarded that to them,
contract.
yeah.
That's okay. Okay.
You know, it's the proverbial kicking the can down the road. If you don't do it, it's always gonna be there. We're just gonna have to, you could pay more for it later when you have to do the reclamation to where you can get away with, like, say, an overlay now, if you wait a few more years, but it's only gonna get worse. So, and we just got to worry, we're in 5 now that we make it, whether the V-Trans pays for it or, we have to come into it, but that's why we're in the engineering of, that's a, case of an example of aging infrastructure and the damages that it's causing now, because it hasn't been replaced in a timely fashion, so.
Yeah.
It's the board's pleasure on this one. You want to make a decision now? Okay.
I think we should keep the paving. It seems like every single time we've been in front of the public for information, people have wanted paving. And I think it's been rough in the years that I've been here because, we went from hardly doing anything because of COVID and now trying to get everything in line. I'm just a strong supporter of doing the paving.
Discussion? Thoughts? Lenny?
I would be willing to restore half of it.
So do a $150,000 reduction.
$150,000 and see where that gets us, because it's difficult. I think it's difficult to get everything done. I mean, yeah, we have plenty of paving that could get done, but it's very difficult to get all that done. So I think $150,000 reduction is what I would be in favor of. Not reducing the whole thing and not giving the whole thing back.
Any thoughts from the board?
Compromise.
I think I would rather cut other things before I cut $300,000 out of the paving budget. I would try to keep this in full, because as Mary said, every time I talk to people in the community, that's what they bring up. So.
Yeah, it's not a matter of us being able to pave and having the money to pave. The biggest hurdle we face is getting contractors to do it. That's what we face. Is not the fact that we're not willing to do that as a board or as a town. It's getting the actual contractors to do the jobs, because we've been.
Well, but I think, lady, that's a part of the issue. Our issue has been not getting this out as soon as the vote, as soon as after town meeting day, the voters approve the budget. We need to get out and get this out there. So that it's on their schedules. So.
Can you tell the taxpayers in the town of Hartford that you will have $1,300, $1,300,000 worth of paving locked in to do in one summer?
You won't get it. You may not get it all done in one summer, but you'll get it done in that fiscal year. You may have to do some of it the following spring. But the sooner we start, the sooner we can't spend the money till 1 July. That's a impediment too. If you're on a calendar year, you could start right away.
How much is there left in there to do next year?
Probably from the most part of it. We've only done some small minor paving this year.
And there was 350 encumbered from 24.
And
So
that's
the combined total was what, 950
Right,
for this
950
year?
and what's that slated to be used for?
for the roads we've got on for.
Yeah, but not Queechee that you mentioned. You know what?
Yep. So for this year, we've got Allison, Jennifer, Overlook, Fairview Terrace, Airport Road, Abbott, Lower Hyde, Hickory, 2 on Hathaway, a portion of Jericho Street, and then a section, a good section of Gucci Main Street.
Okay.
So
all right.
that, we're at exactly about a 900,000 right there for that work to be done.
I will say, I mean, I think that we are resolving issues that had previously been there. I mean, we had transition in leadership in the department, in the Public Works Department. We had pandemic, we had like a rush for contractors. Like, it does seem as though the capacity has increased and improved, would be my estimation. Either way, what's your
I would prefer to see the full 300,000 taken out, but I don't think there's, yeah, I don't think that there's votes for it. I would vote to put in funding of 150, like that compromise, but we got to cut. You know, usually like my perspective on government and things, but we do have to cut.
But given
This
that,
is a 10% tax increase. This is too much.
given that you've discussed the merits of it, maybe the key is to identify what the impact would be with no cut, 150 cut, and a 300 cut, with each of us doing a spreadsheet available for each one Thursday night.
I think that would be useful for the board to look at.
Anything, like you just said, even if it's 10%, we're looking at 12 point some off right now. Even if it gets down to 10%, that's unattainable. That's,
It's a tough year and we don't have any additional revenue sources
Yet.
hopefully, but I mean, at some point you gotta make the cuts. But I think if we could see what those look like in terms of the tax rate, that would be helpful. We can do that Thursday, and we'll just pledge to do it on Thursday. We'll just see how the vote falls. Yes. Okay, Kim?
I'd like to propose increasing the town manager salary by 2.5.
That would match the other employees, yes.
I know we should be adding, but we also,
can I speak on that? It's very difficult to talk about the town manager salary with the town manager here. Okay, I know, but B, I would like to see clear benchmarks from the town manager as far as what he's looking to achieve for successes for the following year. Because I don't know, when we say because when you're given an increase in salary, it's because you've met certain benchmarks, unless it's a cost of living increase. It's because you've reached certain benchmarks in your career, that you've achieved successes or you've gained knowledge or done something for your company. Okay. That's what I guess I'm looking for the town manager, is the benchmarks that we want him to achieve, him or her, whatever it may be in that future position, to achieve for us. And to base a salary increase on the accomplishments that are made. Not just because everyone else is getting a 2.5% increase. And I'm not saying that the town manager hasn't made improvements for the town of Hartford, but I just would like to see some benchmarks reached that we could quantify to the voters the justification for an increase in salary.
The benchmarks, I mean, that's on us as a board to create.
Well,
and then hold to it, you know.
I know, but I mean, we should have some expectations of what the town manager feels he's able to attain. And if he sets unreachable goals for himself, you know.
I will point out that as part of my review process, I did provide a lengthy list of what I had in mind for the coming year. Maybe that would be helpful for you.
I mean, we increased staff salary in the middle of a fiscal year due to a compensation study.
Correct.
And that precedent alone means that I feel like the administrative manager of the town and our one employee should be on par with that rate of increase.
But not everyone received a 2.5% increase. Some people received much larger increases and some people didn't receive a 2.5% increase.
Yep.
So it was not a status quo across the board that everybody got 2.5. So just to say that the town manager should be given 2.5 because that's what everybody else had is an
Well,
incorrect
for this
statement.
fiscal year, like what was the increase for most staff this year?
4.0%, which I think was an effort to match the union contract increases. And the breakdown was 1.5% COLA and 2.5% step to arrive at the 4.0 number.
Yeah, and it's insurance. I mean, it's the union contracts that are really having a hit on us when it comes to increase in payroll. Those are things that are sometimes not within our control as a board that have been here before we got on the board even for contracts.
Those contracts, I think, will be in place for about 3 more years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are kind of things that we don't have, control over that.
Well, anyway, we're putting it out there.
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying I'm having discussion here,
Mhm.
okay, about what we need to look for to evaluate whether somebody is going to receive a raise in their salary. Because you as an employer, you employ people at your work. You base salary increases on what they do for your business, right? And what they bring in.
I get house.
Yeah,
increases.
right. So that's the same thing we should look at for the town manager.
I think he's doing an outstanding job. We
So
should-
can we make an motion or is this something you might bring up Thursday and we think about it before then?
I guess it would be nice to know what the,
What would 2.5%
Yeah.
increase be?
$3,806.
let's do that.
$3,806. Yeah.
And
Yeah, like Mike says, you gotta cut somewhere, so. No, that's sick.
Yeah, I would actually support a 2.5% increase in this case.
This is why it's so hard to talk about town manager salary. Town manager,
I get it.
well,
Mary?
I'll go ahead and make a motion. I move that the select board increase.
You don't need to officially make a
We
motion,
don't?
just tell me that you want me to.
Okay,
If you all say it out loud, that you're in consensus, then that's
Okay.
perfectly fine.
or at least the
Let's
majority.
take a straw poll then on adding a 2.5 increase in the town manager. In favor, make a motion.
Yeah, 3,800 what, John?
I think then I had the number written down
806, he
somewhere.
said.
I had done the math before too, but I don't have it.
All right, looks like you're buying everybody lunch again.
$3,806.25.
Looks like you're taking us all out to lunch
But
again.
who's counting?
Okay, so it looks like that's the support for that. All right, and then so Thursday, we're also gonna see the paving, that's a big one, the numbers with 300, 150, and 0, right? I think the other thing you wanted us to maybe come to consensus on tonight was the items that are gonna be in the local option tax.
Right.
Can you just review those for us?
Yes, we had in mind, at least I had in mind, and this is just one person's thinking, was that if we presented a vehicle package to the voters from various departments, there's literally something for everyone to support and therefore maximizes the chance of success, especially if we draw the distinction between the current lot and the proposed sales tax, right? We don't want people to be confused about the fact that there's 2 different things on the ballot.
Yep.
So with that said, I've talked with Greg Sheldon, I've talked with Brian Gazda, I've talked with Scott Hausler, and I think we have the notion of a combined vehicle package with the DPW, HPD, and Parks and Rec having vehicles together that total $362,000.
Yep.
And we've also discussed the possibility that we'd like an AV overhaul in room 1 here. That would cost about $60,000. And the Hartford Fire Department has proposed the vehicle extraction equipment that we talked about earlier, which I think is $58,000, Scott,
Yeah.
give or take. So that would be a little bit less than the $503,000 we currently have on deposit in our capital reserve for lot purposes.
That's 482. Which items are included in our budget estimate? Like where would this?
The two that are, the 3 that are included in the budget, which for which this would represent savings, are the $200,000 for the six-wheel DPW truck,
Yep.
and the vehicle for rec plus the Gator, correct? 60 plus 27?
675.
Are you asking what is currently in the,
Yeah.
so, I don't mean to interrupt.
Yeah,
Like that the lot would-
my understanding that was that the lot could help with those three purchases, the highway truck and the two park and rec trucks,
Right,
because both
so-
of those were going to be paid for with reserves.
So highway has two trucks. They have a mechanic's truck for 80,000 and they have a dump truck for
Right,
200,000.
I was proposing to have just the six-wheel dump truck as part of this lot package.
Okay, and then the Parks and Rec pickup truck,
And the Gator.
And the Gator
And the
for a total of
Gator.
87.
and so, and then what about the cruiser?
The cruiser, I'm allocating $75,000 toward the police department for their equipment fund or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So take it out of lot then.
No, that would be part of lot, 75 of the
Oh, okay.
95. But the tablets, the chief would be on his own for.
Okay. So of the ones that are listed here, the DPW mechanic truck would not be listed.
That's right.
Okay.
And that's 80.
That's 80.
We have
Like,
275, we have
Can I
60 and 27, right?
Right.
Can I ask a question about the mechanics truck?
Yeah.
Is there any way to get away with a smaller pickup truck for the mechanic versus a half-ton?
We're looking for service truck.
Well, oh, is that what you're trying to do? Service truck as well? Okay, so no, gotta have at least a 3/4 ton then. Okay. Thank you.
okay. So those items are ones that we could achieve savings if we did it in a lot.
Right.
I just throwing it out there, we don't have to make any decisions tonight. I think. I wonder, is it better to try and fund the mechanic truck for 80 for the lot by just taking out the 60,000 for audio video upgrades in this room? And then just adding 20 more on, then you're basically at your total lot amount. But the 60,000 towards here, that's not something that's already been, we're not getting
That's right.
extra.
No, that's
savings
right.
from that,
That's right.
And so we do without it for a year, we get an extra vehicle
Yep.
and we have another item that's paid for by the lot.
That's certainly true.
I mean, I'm just throwing that out there for people. to
The only
think
pushback is that you probably know better than I do about how you've heard from people about the AV quality. For a while, that seemed to be a hot topic, but I haven't heard about it recently.
Everybody's gotta do without, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna cut, maybe we don't get our upgrade and that money, we ask for a lot funding for a truck that will be used.
Right, a tangible
I mean, I'm
thing.
just throwing it out there for the point. I've grown fond of the owl.
What?
No, I'm just kidding. I've not grown fond of the owl, but it's not that, I don't find it to be as big a deal as it once.
But
was.
another vehicle for DPW might help the paving cut go down easier.
The board for the lot, we don't have to decide necessarily the AV right this second, I don't think, unless we want to, but are the other items in there ones that we think we would agree on? So those, so it's basically like a package of vehicles plus the fire.
Extrication.
Fire
Extrication tools.
extrication tools, right?
Right.
Like generally, is that stuff, I mean, I feel like putting those together, selling them as like, we're getting vehicles for the departments. And we're gonna use this money that we've already raised to pay for it, so it doesn't get reflected, in the property tax increase. It's like, I mean,
First, you've got 3 salesmen, not just one.
yeah, right, exactly.
And you've got the argument that we're trying to help with the property taxes.
Jim,
by
do you
using
have a
this fund.
comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, no, I don't. I mean, we don't have any reserve for this just building maintenance or, I mean, it's,
We started, I think this was the first year, FY 25. I think if you were to look in your budget book all the way to the end in the 921.
Or are we talking about the HVAC kind of fund that we're doing?
It's not specific just for the fund, it's just
Okay.
for this, for HVAC, it's for this building.
Got it. The
And I
intent
think we
was,
started it this year.
because we were looking at HVAC problems and we thought that maybe 200,000 might be needed in a couple of years to tackle it. So we've been putting 50,000 away for that. This is the second year that we're proposing. But
Yeah.
doesn't mean we couldn't use it for another purpose.
Yeah, it's on page 88 of the original budget. Almost to the bottom is 10/9/21/544/0161. It's called Town Hall. Transfer.
And is there,
We just started it this year
Yeah.
in 25.
26, because yeah, I mean, I wonder if potentially if that stays in and gets funded, maybe there's a world in which it quotes are gotten, it comes in lower and it can be purchased out of reserves. Like that would be an applicable account to do it if at a later point.
Certainly could. And, you know, the HVAC system, I think, is what we all have nightmares about, and
Some of us more than others.
some of us
Yeah.
more than others. But certainly, even if you wanted to take into consideration, maybe you want to increase the town hall deposit this year in 26 and 27, and then replace it in 27. Or you can put it in front of the lot. I mean, I guess it really depends on the board and how you feel about the current system that we have going on right now. The board is the only one that can make that decision for us, so.
Thoughts on the lot? I mean, I think we've realized before, never gonna guarantee that something gets passed, unless it's something like libraries, but then we just take a huge amount of heat for it, you know, we saw that go down last year. But I think vehicles for public works, fire, and parks and rec has a pretty good chance of passing. And since, you know, this is actually saving us money on the bottom line, because it's been included in the budget, you know, I think that was good, and if we can, you know, I would say if we forewent the 60 grand for an audio visual upgrade, basically use almost the entire amount of the lot and throw in that DPW truck. And, you know, I mean, it's pretty strong, it's just, we want vehicles and this is really good, right?
So question, and I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time to ask it, but if we're talking about lot and we're talking about 1% local option tax across the board. I understand that the legislature's made that possible so we could do that without it going through the charter change. But we currently have on the books a lot item. So does that have to go through the legislature to be taken off to have it all changed to 1%? I'm not quite sure I follow
The state allows municipalities to tax several different types of things. It allows a rooms and meals tax. It allows an alcohol tax. It allows a sales tax.
Right.
The town of Hartford has the rooms and meals tax and the alcohol tax already. And that money goes into this capital reserve fund from which we were arguing that we should use it to buy these vehicles as a way to get those items out of the general fund budget and save some money.
Right.
What we're talking about is instituting a 1% sales tax that you could dedicate for any purpose. And that money could be used however the voters are willing to approve. But the select board will need to explain to the voters how they imagine these funds would be utilized. One discussion we've had is that it could be dedicated to buying down tax rates, property tax rates, as an alternative revenue
So we'll
source.
still have the reals.
You still will have that accumulating money at the clip of about $350,000 a year.
So the taxpayers are still going to get a say on exactly what that money is used for.
Right.
And if we were to label this other 1%, strictly to reduce the tax burden to the taxpayers. Okay, I didn't know if that had to be all rolled into the same thing.
No.
So, okay, that makes a lot more sense now.
And our original draft, we saw the lot proposal basically said this money is used to buy down tax. So it just gets funneled right back into that.
Yeah, but we need to make sure we have a distinction when we present it to the voters that we still have the 1% local option tax on. That's the difference. Is there?
And Scott Hausler knows from painful experience that we need to distinguish between a sales tax and the other lot that we have in place.
That's
So
exactly-
in-
that's
Info
what-
night will be like, we ask you to adopt a new tax, here's what that means, we ask you to use our existing local option
Yes.
tax for these items, vehicles for these departments, and we have to be clear
Right.
that that's what we're asking everyone to do, and I think we also have to be clear to the voters that when we're using the rooms, meals, alcohol tax, that's money that we've already collected, right? And we're using it in a way essentially to pay for things that would otherwise come out of the general fund, right? Like that's the idea, is you link it back to actual tax relief theoretically.
And if we wanted to roll the whole thing though into a 1% across the board, that's not, why would that not be a good idea?
I mean, part of the problem is we've got the local, the meals, rooms, alcohol in the charter, right? And it's just like a pain to change the charter because it has to get voted on twice, even though the school really has, the local option tax, that's not really their thing. You still gotta vote on it twice. So we've got it in there where it requires voter approval. If we go forward with a local option sales tax where it just says all this money automatically pays down the tax rate, then that sort of takes care of that. And then going forward, any revenue from that, which as of 2021, I feel like I'm trying to sell this, was like something like $500,000.
It's good practice for you.
Right? So anyway, so we do have those things to think about, but in this budget, I think it would be great if what we ask people to approve were all items that otherwise are in this calculation of the budget.
Yeah, I get
They
it. I
come
get
out
it. I get
and we
it.
say, here's how we get $500,000 savings right now, right?
Well, the only distinction there then is that the extraction equipment is not currently in the budget. That's the only difference.
Extraction equipment.
Yeah,
The fire
The
department.
the fire
Yeah.
department.
Oh,
But I'm
And neither is
confident,
the
extrication.
but I'm confident Chief
Extrication.
Cooney can sell ice to the Eskimos or the Inuits.
So we've got a great team to sell.
Yes.
that stuff. But
Extrication.
Two things. One is a hand up, and just to clarify, do you get enough specificity from the state when we get the local option tax quarterly that really identifies that we're getting the short-term rental amounts as well? Okay.
No, we basically just get a spreadsheet that they, print out that they give to us, and it says for the period, what the amount was collected and what we get. It doesn't break it down by,
Okay.
It doesn't say like Airbnb.
So how are you going to be able to tell it was on rooms, meals and alcohol?
Oh, no, that'll be a separate.
Well, the state knows that we are a recipient of rooms and meals tax. And I called the Department of Taxes and I asked them, does that mean that the town is collecting Airbnb fees? And they told me, yes.
But my question to Gail is that if we enact this 1%, how is she going to see that there's a difference between the 1% coming from?
they'll probably just send us a different remittance. I mean,
Okay, that's my
we
question.
have lots of funding sources that we get from the state, and usually they have a reference number on them.
Okay,
and
that's, so there will be
yeah.
differentiation.
I would
to
hope
know.
so.
Well,
I
that's what
can't
I'm hoping
imagine
too,
that they
but-
would just stick them all together.
I want to see what the board's
Pleasure.
pleasure is on some of this, and we'll get to the
Okay.
person who's got their hand up, right? But so Thursday, we're gonna see the paving, half paving, no paving, right? I think.
Not no paving, less paving.
Less paving, right, sorry, less paving. And then I think we'll see the lot, if you want to just sort of draw up like what the items are in the lot.
Yeah.
So we can look at that. Then I think the final decision, maybe if we want to see 79,000 restored funding versus not restoring the funding, if that's possible, then I think those are the three main questions that we have to decide before we actually vote tentatively to say, yes, this is in the budget, right? And if we narrow it down to like those three and have numbers for Thursday, I think we can be pretty efficient. Like, I don't think we would have to come in tomorrow necessarily. We will try to be efficient on Thursday.
We're still planning on Thursday though.
Yeah, Thursday we have to, just because we're gonna get updated numbers on some of these. So let's hear from the public and then,
And I have something,
and then Gail will have something.
Okay, go ahead, Heidi. Heidi, you can unmute.
Heidi, are you there? Gail, do you have a comment? Heidi, if we can hear you, we'll come back to you that I think. Gail
Yeah,
has.
so I just wanted to recap. So you already talked about the paving, 150, 300. What would you like to do about the appropriations? I think one board member made a comment that we're imagining that it's not there for those 5. Do you want to add them back in and see what the impact's going to be, or do you want to leave it where it is?
I think, I don't know if that we're imagining anything. We're reflecting the current reality, which probably will change in January. I don't think it's a big problem for us to add those petitioning items in January. That's pretty much the only reason we have January, along with candidate applications. So we're going to have to meet in January anyway. We might as well just add those petitioners who have succeeded in petitioning. Some might not succeed.
Yeah, no, right, I mean, once they get the signatures, we have to add them and then you can add it. And
Do we not actually vote on the budget that we want to send to the voters until January anyway? Like this would happen before then?
ideally, we get 99% of the way there.
Yeah, like
on
right
Thursday.
when
but-
Thursday, when we get done, it should be finalized except for adding the petitions.
Mhm.
What is the actual date when no more changes can be made?
Like January 20, 21st, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, but it's in January, right? Hopefully, we basically get there on Thursday.
What's the drop dead date for the printers for the books?
Paula will tell me.
I have a drop dead date for the ballots, but
I think Paula's date will be the same as the clerk's date. It all seems to converge that
we have.
the warnings happen, then they immediately go to the printer with the town report.
Yeah,
So
that's what I-
I can have both of those for you on Thursday.
Oh, great.
We were right up to the deadline last time.
Yeah.
How do you get the,
She put her hand down.
let's put her hand down. Okay, so,
And then I have,
yeah, let's just recap what we expect to see numbers for and decide on
Yeah.
Thursday.
oh, yeah,
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
So we already talked about the paving,
Yeah.
we're, the appropriations, we're gonna add them in January, just, I'm gonna add in the 3 revenue sources that we identified today that I mentioned. And then the contracted services, the Director of Parks and Rec just let me know that on the line that has the building, removing the building from it, I took out the full 84,000 and I should have left 4,000 in there because he needs that for water testing.
Mhm.
And then was there a decision made if you would like to do something with that building? It's currently out of the numbers that are here. So did you make a decision that you would like to add it back in, or would you like the Director of Parks and Rec to come to you on Thursday with a more updated amount about having the building removed?
I don't know that we made a decision on it. People have thoughts we can sort of talk about now. I think it's gonna be one of those, let's see what it looks like on Thursday. And I also think in some sense, it can be kind of related to the fire department request to restore 79,000. Right, because it could be like, sorry, we're not taking the building down this year, but yes, we will restore some of the funding, right? And it's kind of like,
Okay,
you know, one takes care of the other.
so we'll leave that one out for, it's not in there now, and I'm gonna leave it out until Thursday.
Yeah, I think for us, just seeing what, what does it look like in and what does it look like out for these various.
Okay.
items, is important. Brandon, and then Lane?
I would like to see left in at least enough to do all the necessary testing on that building so that we can get accurate quotes for its demolition in the future. I know he mentioned $12,000 for asbestos testing, like.
If you
So
could
what
run
if-
those numbers, I think that would be helpful, because we may at the end just be like, all right, well, let's put in some money so we get a test and see how, or whatever, how much it's gonna cost us to remediate it to the point where we can burn it down or demolish it, right? So.
And then do we have any, in the 2.5% for the town manager, are we adding that in? That's the consensus from
being added
everybody?
in, Yeah.
Okay. And I didn't have any other additions that I wrote down. Did I miss anything?
No, not from you, but I have a request. If I may, actually for the fire department. for the $79,000 that you would like to see put in, is there a way that you could prioritize those items so that if we don't restore all of those items, you could get your priority items in place? I would much prefer that than saying we're just gonna give you this amount, because I'm sure there's things that you really want to have for your department. So if I could make that request to the town manager.
Seems reasonable. I mean, I think where we're at now, what we've done, it's good work tonight, and it's incredible work by the staff and the department
Yes.
heads finding
Yes.
Yes.
this amount of cuts. And I know it's a very difficult process, and, you know.
Still looking at a staggering number to take the voters.
No, I know, and so it's gonna be tough for us, and you guys have made a lot of tough decisions, and it's great to work with such a, you know, a great staff. And I think what we've done also is we've lined it up, so for Thursday, we know what the questions are that we have to decide, and we're gonna get numbers to show us what that looks like. Then we just gotta come here on Thursday and work our way through it and vote for it.
If I could make a comment, though, is that because this is such a staggering number, we should look for the future of the town of Hartford residents turning this down if they don't like this number. And if it gets turned down, we're gonna have to make even more staggering cuts. And this is gonna be a department heads to say, how much more can we suffer? So think about that for the future. And I'm just, again, I'm playing the you know, the ball underneath the desk kind of thing. But this is a staggering number. And you have to remember, and that's not under our control, we have a school board budget too, okay? But it's a lot of money for someone. And when you have people in the town of Hartford that are on fixed incomes and are near the poverty level as it is, it's a lot.
I didn't think you paid the full property tax.
There's some income sensitivity.
Income sensitivity.
But I
I
will-
hear
I-
that argument a lot.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not in favor. I would like to see the property tax increase to be as low
Yeah.
as possible.
Yeah.
But I do think we hear that a lot about people who are on fixed incomes, but generally you're not gonna pay your full property tax if you don't make a certain.
It's also an incentive, again, to be persuasive with the voters with regard to the potential for a sales tax that could be $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 in alternative funding to the property tax itself.
I don't disagree, but I've seen budgets fail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it'll happen. I mean,
And a lot smaller budgets,
you know.
a lot smaller budgets fail.
Well, I think we have that chance every single year. And if we get to that point that they do turn it down, then we're gonna have to deal with it at that point. And actually, the board will need to make a decision on what bodies and services that you would want to cut, because we have no more items to we can cut. It's great if you have tons of shovels, but if you don't have anybody to run them or vehicles to operate them, you're just kind of.
So you're saying that at that point in time, we're gonna have to lose people?
Yeah,
I specifically from my department, and I can think of 3 other departments, if the budget didn't pass and you came back, it would be bodies, because I have nothing else. I have nothing else to give for, in order, like for my department to be in compliance and for the town to actually continue receiving funding. Yeah, because it is a team effort. What else are you gonna do? Cut all of the paving out of Public Works? I mean,
I don't want to have to
This
cut
is-
anything.
well,
That's
this
the
is
point. is
reality.
that-
I mean, you brought it up.
I
so
know,
that's
but what I'm saying is
reality.
that we
It's
gotta figure out a
bodies
way
and
to go about it,
services, Which
so.
a decision, if should it happen, the board would have to make a decision, but I think we have everything that we need.
Yeah,
and
I think that was a good discussion. I think we're well prepared for Thursday to come in and make some of these decisions, which are not easy.
And I'm reading between the lines that we have tomorrow night off.
Yes, and we have tomorrow night off. Thank goodness. Everyone go out and enjoy it. We have no consent agenda tonight, but I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved at 8:35.
We have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, we're adjourned.
John, can you send me again your list of objectives? I can't find
Yeah,
it.
I'm happy to do it. Happy to do it. I don't know that I shared it with everybody. It might have been just